But there I am doing sand art, and I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. Like most shows, you have a neighbor. And I'm in one booth, they're in the other booth, and over the period you're there, you get fairly friendly. And there was a woman named Kathy Callahan, who I'd known from many different shows, because a lot of people do the same circuit. And one of the common things you ask about your neighbor is, have you done any good shows lately? Because you want to hear whether there's one that you should go to make more money, or that's fun, you know. And she tells me that she's on her way to do her next shows up in Canada. And I say, you can do shows in Canada? And she says yes. And so this woman tells me that she has a promoter who gets her working papers, and then she goes up and spends months and months up there, and that she loves it. And she said, if you give me pictures of your work, I'll show it to the promoter. His name was Al White. And World of Wonders was the name of the craft show. And he eventually gets back to me and says, yeah, I'll get you all the paperwork you need. And first show I went to was in Montreal. I remember stopping for a hitchhiker, and he was from Quebec, and he was teaching me how to speak a little so that I could talk. Little things, curse words, things like that. And this woman changed my life, because, as you know, I live in Canada now. And without her, I would never have come to Canada to find my fame and fortune, you know. Just this one woman telling me about this. And she and I remained friends till her death. She had a tragic ending. She had met this guy, and fell in love, became pregnant, got married. And a year after she had the baby, or while she was pregnant, while she was nursing the baby, when it was very young, she started to have a backache. And ultimately, it became cancer. And I visited her in the hospital. And here's another just crazy thing. When I was in South America, I met this woman, and she started hanging around with my brother and traveling with us and another girlfriend of mine, who I met down there, a woman from California. And we had gone through the first night we got down, we were traveling as a foursome, the two girls and my brother and I. We rented a place on the beach in South America, in Ecuador. And it was a small village. And we were at a place called China Sin Nombre, means no name, China without a name, Chinese without a name. And it had a little Chinese restaurant, and they had one cabin on the beach. I mean, 100 meters from the beach, right? On the beach, so in the sand. And it was halved, so there were two entrances, one on each side. That night, all of a sudden, the cabin started shaking, And I thought it was my brother making love to the woman next door, to Helen, her name was. And the next day, I said to my brother, I said, oh man, like, what the fuck were you guys doing last night? I said, the place was shaking. He goes, that wasn't us, Ken. He goes, it was an earthquake. I went, what? And it was the earthquake in Guatemala. The next year, now I continued to travel with these guys. We went up the coast by boat and walking on the beach. We had an incredible trip. Right after that, I went to the Galapagos Islands for a month. Then I came back. I went into the jungle without my brother. I was tired of him. He was tired of me. So we took a break. And I did all these things with his blessing. I'd give him enough money so he could live. And then I came back and met him, and we continued our trip. We went all the way down to La Paz, Bolivia. We went to Machu Picchu, walked the Inca Trail. We had a wonderful trip together. And we got to know each other. Because before that, I was a 15-year-old when I knew him last. 10 years went by, and I had grown up, and I could show him my skills as a human being, and he could see me as not my younger brother, but an equal. And so I appreciated that. But now, the next year, I come back with all my treasures. I loved going into a market and finding things to buy, antique clothing and weavings and jewelry. And when I'd meet another traveler, I'd say, do you have treasures? And they would go, yeah, I've got this. I'd say, do you want to trade? And so I would trade and get all kinds of beautiful things. And the next year, so I go home with all this. And I gave away a lot as gifts. And here's another lesson in life that I learned. Before the year was up, the following winter, the beginning of winter, I went and visited the same girlfriend that I had in Dayton, Ohio, the respiratory therapist. We were still occasionally meeting. And while I was there, I get a phone call from my roommates in Ohio. By that time, I had moved to a rural place called Meigs County. It was like living in the warp, like living in a place where it was the 1930s, sort of like Appalachia. It was fantastic. It was really a wonderful experience of nature. And I'm getting less and less like the suburban city guy, and now I'm loving nature much more than cities. And I get a call from them not to come home. Why? Why shouldn't I come home? The place burned down. Right to the ground. The only thing they could find of mine was some ceramic beads from necklaces. Otherwise, nothing. And that was a wonderful lesson, that what I gave away still existed. What I kept and hoarded for myself, gone. It's sort of like investing. You need to invest in a lot of things, not just one stock, because that could go up or down. But if you do a lot, you'll have something. So I learned to be generous and to give away the things I love. And, well, what do? Where do I go? No house. So I bought a ticket to Guatemala and went to Guatemala. There, I met friends from South America who had just coincidentally been there. One of the girlfriends that I had there, the one from California that Helen and I walked, she was taking Spanish there, and it just ran into her. And she told me about these other friends. And they told me they were in business with the other girl, Helen, who traveled with us. And Helen started this retail store selling Central and South American things that these friends from who were in Guatemala were sending her jewelry and clothing and stuff. And they told me that the store was on a river, and the river was, the store was on this boardwalk along the river in this small town in Canada. Okay. Years go by. Now I'm doing craft shows in Canada. And the promoter says to me, Ken, I'm opening up a little gallery in this little town called Elora, Ontario. And it's west of Toronto. And it's in this gorge with a river and this deep gorge that people love. And he says, it's a little tourist area, and I'm open. Would you think of setting up for the summer? I said, I don't know. He said, come on. A bunch of us are going to go there this weekend to look at it, and I'll show it to you. So I do. They show me it. It sounds like a great idea. We're walking around the town. There's these stairs that go down to the Grand River. I take the stairs, and I walk on the boardwalk, and all of a sudden I see a sign for a store of South American and Central American imports. And I look, and I never thought of this ever since I was in Central America. All of a sudden that conversation twigged that this woman, Helen Aitken, had opened a store on a boardwalk on a river. And so I go, what's the chance? And I walk into the store, and there's a guy there. And I look at him, and I say, look, I know this is a long shot. I said, but I have a friend who supposedly opened up a store on a boardwalk on a river in a small town in Canada. I said, by any chance, does Helen Aitken own this store? And he looks at me and he goes, no. I said, what's the chance? And he waits for me to be disappointed, and he said, but she did. I just bought the store from her. And he got on the phone, and I spoke to her. And she came rushing over, of course, and I kept the friendship going till she died, just pretty recently.